Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Success Without Sacrifice show. On today's special episode, we're talking to a healthcare executive who wanted to quit her job every single day. And now she has leaned in and she is thriving. Let's learn how she did it. All right, everyone, welcome back to the show. We have a very special guest. Nancy is here. She is an executive in the healthcare industry, and she is going to share her story, how she went from literally having days where she thought maybe it was time to walk away to now where she's thriving and, actually living out some things that she thought she wasn't going to be able to do until her retirement. So Nancy, I am curious and super excited to share your story today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kate. I'm super excited to be here as well. I'm really looking forward to this conversation this afternoon.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very relatable to a lot of women out there. So why don't you just give us a little bit of a brushstroke of like what you do? Tell us a little bit about what you do, maybe a little bit, about your personal life. Do you have, kids, dogs, cats, and, what you do for a living? Just to let us get to know you a little bit.
Sure. So my current role right now is in a hospital setting in a health system. And I'm in senior leadership for the past almost 2 years now, but I have actually worked for this particular institution for 30 years. So I've essentially grown up here. So it's been a really long path and journey since I was in college to the position I'm in now. So I've, certainly moved up the ranks and had to, deal with managing people that I used to work side by side with. And so this most recent transition was in the middle of a pandemic, and I was, moved up with a large group of people at one time. So it's really been interesting. I get to oversee some amazing departments in this area. So I have a lot of clinical folks who report to me, direct patient care, but I oversee everybody who does that kind of work who is not in the nursing department. So really just interesting. I'm learning a lot. There's a lot of areas, but I am a pharmacist by background. So, and we'll, as we talk, there's a lot of sort of stereotypical things about pharmacists that will come through and, how we operate and kind of based on our training and so on. In addition to work, I do have 2 college-aged children, one who is about to graduate college in May, which is super exciting, and starting his own sort of career journey going forward. So that's thrown some interesting curves our way, as well as he's navigating interviews and so on. And another child who's 20, she's also in college. She's following in the healthcare footsteps and going to school for occupational therapy, which I'm really excited about. So she's got, she's 3 years out of 6. So she's got a little bit of a ways ahead of her. I am divorced for 12 years and been in that status for a while. I have a partner that I've been with on and off for about 12 years as well, or 11 years, I guess, a year later. And so he's around, but I live on my own and navigate that and have pretty much full financial responsibility for my kids since that divorce, and not a lot of financial support, certainly some good father support, but it's a lot of pressure to know that it's all on you. College is all on me, everything is all on me going forward. So and I just recently about a year ago adopted a dog, and we talk about dogs a lot, I think, in this in our group, and certainly has become huge therapy for me, whether you use it or not. So that's been great.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Well, and as a former single mom, I totally can relate to that, right? Because I as well did not have a lot of support. And so not only are you the breadwinner, but you're the mom, and sometimes you're the dad, and you're the person paying all the bills, and you're trying to navigate, your career. That's a lot. It's not easy. So when we say, thinking about stepping back for you, Nancy, stepping back or leaving your career is a massive life change, because that changes how the kids go to school. That changes the house you live in. Like that would have had a huge impact on you. So, okay. So let's talk about that. How did you, how did you, I guess, get to a point where you were like, I don't know if I can do this anymore, right? Like, what was going on for you? Was it the pandemic? I mean, obviously in your industry, that's hard. Was it just the new job and the new promotion? Like, what was going on for you? And yeah, what was that like?
Yeah, it probably wasn't the first time in my career here that I had been through a similar thought process of I don't know that I can continue to do this and stay in this environment. And usually in the past, it was related to a previous manager, basically, that I was working with. And then over time, that manager moved on and I was promoted. And so I took that role and I was able to work on changing things and being in leadership. What really happened, I think, for me was the pandemic certainly was impactful. But the bigger issue for me was I'd been a middle manager for such a long time. And that's, every position and every role is difficult, right? But middle management, it's just so being in that position where you've got the people staring at you for what do I do, and the people above you saying do this, and trying to manage that both, right? So I had done that for so long. And when the pandemic hit, I was still in that role. But for such a long time, I had been pulled from a lot of that sort of middle management role into some senior leadership type activities. And so there was some frustration building where I was saying, hey, you're putting me at the table, but you're not really putting me at the table. And I get pulled into an interview when you're hiring a VP. And yet here I am, I've been here all these years. And when do I get the true seat at the table, feeling like I was kind of deserving and had really was ready. And so it wasn't happening. And there was some frustration there. And then when it did happen, it was at such a chaotic time. And so I was sort of like, okay, now you're going to do this to me. And, I said, I don't have any succession plan in place. I have nobody to replace. We're in the middle of this pandemic. I mean, it was actually like July of 2020. Wow. And so I couldn't, it was just so confusing. I couldn't move up right away. I had to stay in my other office. And then I finally moved up. So many people were moving up all at once. And it was just like announced. And I just didn't feel like I got any support, right, in that change. And the way I had put it, and I'd written it down because it was so vivid to me, was that I felt like I was this kid who wanted to learn how to ride a bike and wanted it so badly. And then, the parent swoops in after the other parent says, no, you can't ride a bike. You're too little. You can't do it. You can't do it. And then the other parent says, sure, you can. I'm going to get your bike. And they give you the bike and say, go. And you're like, well, what do you mean? I don't know how to ride a bike. And the response is sort of like, of course you do. You've watched people ride a bike, therefore you must know how to ride a bike, And so that's how I felt. Like it was that there was an expectation that because I had reported to VPs, suddenly I would know how to be a VP. And I didn't have a lot of support. And I think I don't blame anybody for that. I do think that the chaos we were in just didn't allow for it. But it just was this sort of constant, I can't possibly be doing this right. Yeah. And therefore I need to go, right? I need to do something else. I'm not meant for this. I should have stayed where I was. I made a mistake. I was the senior and then I became the freshman, and yeah. And it was, it just got to that point where I just said, I think I screwed up and I can't go back because that didn't feel right either. Mm-hmm. And I thought my only option is out.
Nancy. Okay. I'm so glad. Thank you for telling you that story. And here's why. And for everyone out there listening, this is so common because when you move from that, let's just say that director level, that middle management sandwich, right, into that VP role, it is one of the toughest shifts. Because, and I remember that vividly, I was like, oh my gosh, it was sweet for about a week. Like get the VP title, you're so excited until, just like you said, Nancy, you realize that now you're the new little kid at a big table. So instead of feeling like a big girl at the table, I was like, oh wait, now I've got training wheels on again because I don't know how to be an executive and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so what happens is women, we either keep doing our own jobs because that's comfortable. We know how to, deliver a report or do something that's very, tactical or that type, or we implode because like you said, nobody tells you to be a VP. It's like, welcome to the big leagues, sister, figure it out. And we're just left sort of scrambling. And then of course you have other things like, oh, I don't know, teenage children at home and you're working in a pandemic, and wow. So that is very normal to feel that way. And without help and support, what most women do is they do step out for just like, I'm done. What kept you in it? What do you think kept you in it long enough to figure out that maybe there could be another way, or maybe you needed a different type of support? I mean, was it the money? I mean, I don't mean to be so like, money, but I mean, you've got 2 kids to take care of.
This came with a raise, and I had never really been super focused on money. I always, but the truth is I actually really never knew what my counterparts were making until I moved into this position. So that was a little eye-opening. But it was a significant bump, and I said, this is great. And suddenly the college savings that I didn't have became easier. I said, okay, now I'm good. I don't have to worry year to year anymore. This is going to be great. So yeah, I certainly played a role. Interestingly enough, I think the pandemic also played a role because of what I was doing and the purpose that the job had always fulfilled for me was really important. And because I really have spent my entire career in this place. And so for me, there was a tie, which I kind of later am starting to realize really had been somewhat unhealthy, right? To a certain extent, there was this tie to this place where I was working that I really felt quite beholden to, right? I owe them because I have been promoted here. They have sustained me through my divorce, through my children. They've been good to me. I've never wanted for anything. I've been, whatever. So I just sort of felt like I owe them. That was part of it for sure. The other part was I was in the thick of this pandemic still. And I just thought I can't step away from these people and this team that are working so incredibly hard and just say I'm out, And so that kind of kept me in it too, for sure.
Yeah, I want to give all of our listeners a little bit of color, because Nancy sort of filled out a form to help us all just get prepared for this interview. And I have to read this, Nancy, because this just blew me away. Because again, Nancy's in an industry, for everyone out there in healthcare, they're nodding their heads like vigorously right now. And for those of us not in healthcare, we hear the stories, but we don't get it. But you said something like, here you are in the pandemic, it's hard enough to keep staff content in this service-oriented work before the pandemic. But now the burnout is everywhere, and your people are saying, why am I doing this? And then of course, if you bail and walk away, now they're really untethered. And you're saying you would interview staff for a pharmacy tech position, very low paying, job. There's a point in which you have to impress upon a 19 or 20-year-old that you're not selling shoes. Like you can't call in for snow days. And this is what got me. You said, everyone in your industry, they come to work. We make arrangements to sleep here. You move your car to a street that gets plowed. You figure it out because the patients in the beds cannot take care of themselves. The towers fall in New York City, we work. A hurricane hits, we work. Ice storm, chemical explosion, pandemic, watching your coworkers get sick and potentially even die, we work. Like, Nancy, that hit me just reading it like a ton of bricks. And so I just want to share that with everyone. Like Nancy walking away, or people walking away in your industry, like we get it. Like how difficult is it? But this is not an easy industry to navigate, right? So you get to feel like some days you don't want to come to work, or maybe enough is enough, especially after 30 years. Like, wow. Okay. So I want to dig more into that, but like, what is it like now? Is I want to go from, I think we understand and we all can empathize with the promotion in a pandemic in an industry that's already tough, to feeling like I want to walk away, but I'm trapped, is what you're explaining. To what is it like now? In other words, how do you feel less trapped? And how do you feel like I'm not just surviving this now, but I'm okay?
So
like what's different in your life now, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably 100 answers to that question, right? Since CWU and everything that's sort of happened since I made that phone call. But I want to, if I could, tell a little bit of the story that I wrote about my colleague who really was caring and recognizing that I was unraveling a bit, and we would leave meetings and he would follow me into my office and just be like, you got to relax, you've got to calm down, because I was just so frustrated with moving into this role and feeling like I couldn't get my point across and nobody was taking me seriously, and I couldn't, but I was just approaching it from this sense of urgency and why won't you listen to me? And I just couldn't, I had never had this poker face. And I would always say that, like, I have no poker face. I'm in a room. If I don't like what's being said, everybody's going to know it. And I had started to believe that, hey, that's like, too bad, that's me. And, take it or leave it. I'm this hot-blooded Italian, and I get excited and I get passionate about things, and I'm emotional and I might tear up and whatever. But he kept coming to me and he kept saying, this isn't okay, right? And he knew it, but he wasn't articulating it to me the way I needed to articulate it. And he basically was saying, nobody's going to take you seriously because you're a hot mess. Like, you're just stressed out all the time and everybody sees it. And I would like really just explode into a room, always late, always like the sky is falling, my day is a disaster, and it was just, and everybody knew it, and I wasn't seeing it. Mm-hmm. And, and so when I made the decision to enroll and engage with this program, what's different now is that I had some kind of slaps of reality come at me to say, a lot of it is actually you and how you are reacting to things. And of course, nobody's going to take you seriously if you cannot control your emotions. And really just that recognition of so much of how I was behaving was really just all completely from fear, right? I was just 100%, every decision I was making was based on fear. I had no idea until, getting involved in this, and quite honestly, getting some of those doses of you got to change, like you have to change. And that was difficult because I was used to being in charge of my department. I was used to everybody looking to me and telling them and being right, dead on, do it. And yep. And that would work. Now I'm saying things and they're all just walking away and ignoring me. I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Right. Right. And how was that impacting you? Like when people walked away, like for me, when I was going through that, because at one point in my career, it's the same thing. It was like, Kate was known as a, BITCH kind of a thing. And at some point I was just like, well, that's just who I am. Like everybody's going to get used to it because I'm just tired of hearing about it. And it just, I was like, I don't get it. Like, let's just get done. Like, come on, people, you know what I'm saying? Which worked for a while. And it certainly got us both into, some really nice promotions and all these things, but it's not going to help you thrive at that level. And certainly at that VP level and above, you got to play the game differently. And so where was it, I guess, impacting you? In other words, when you got frustrated, when people were walking away, did you go home at night and were you, tired and exhausted? Were you snippy with your kids? Was it like, how was it showing up for you where you were getting frustrated and it was impacting you in, I guess, in other ways?
I probably cried on my way out the door every day. That's really where I was at. I would, be packing up my stuff. I would probably be the last one leaving. And my kids were away at school. And so that was almost more difficult because it was like, well, there's nobody home waiting for me. And quite honestly, that was part of the reason why I got the dog. I'm like, well, I'll have a reason to leave if I have a dog, but that was sort of a desperate thing to do in a way, right? I have to go to that length. So yeah, I would end up crying on a pretty regular basis and then just go home. And I would, you mentioned it earlier, I would get to work so late because I would have to really just convince myself every day to get out of bed and say, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do it. And so it was just miserable. Like I was miserable. I really was. And I said no to a lot of things because of it. And so that's another way it was impacting me was we were in the middle of a pandemic, but there was still opportunities to do some things that could be social. And I would just say no to everything. Like I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I don't want to go out. And then I would crash the whole weekend.
Yeah.
If I didn't do any work or I might've done some, but if I would just crash. And then Sunday night would be the most horrific time of the week for me because I would look back and say, My weekend was just I did nothing. And now I have to go back to work tomorrow morning and do it all over again. And it was, that was where my head was at.
And that's where, as women, you get to this level and you're like, well, this isn't worth it. Like, I'm crying every day on the way home from work. I used to do the same thing, years ago. Several clients asked me like, "Kate, well, why did you finally come up with this, different way of working?" And I said, I was just tired of like riding this emotional roller coaster of like, oh, life is good. And then the next minute I'd be like head and hands in tears, just so frustrated and so angry and so exhausted or whatever. And so I just so relate to that. And so I'm glad thank you for sharing that, because I think there's a lot of women out there who are like, oh my God, it's not just me. You know what I mean? You're not doing anything wrong, ladies. Like, this is what happens if we don't learn to work in a different way. And I just wanted to expound a little bit on what Nancy was talking about when she says, like, I had to learn that the problem was me. And I had to learn how to change how I showed up. It was the same thing for me. The problem is influence, and learning how to show up in a different way isn't just changing your words. It's learning how to let go of that fear that we don't even know is there. Like, if you had told me 15 years ago, Kate, you're operating out of fear, I would have been like, what are you talking about? I am badass. Like, there's no way. I was like, I will chew you up and spit you out. There is no fear here. And that was the fear, right? The fear was, I'm not going to get my point across. Nobody's going to take me seriously in this meeting. If I don't put my stamp on this work, or if people don't do things my way, I must be failing. And all of those things, or even just that all or nothing mentality, it's a fear-based. It's, I'm not valuable unless things are going for me in this way. And it sounds like that's what you were experiencing. Like, okay, I got this place at the table, but now I feel like I'm failing. Nobody's listening to me. Nobody likes my ideas. And I remember some of our calls, when you and I were working together, and you're like, okay, Kate, I have this idea. And if everybody could just get on board with my idea. And I was like, Nancy, like, and I love that, because as women, we want to come up with an idea. Here's the plan. And if I can just sell it in, it'll solve it. And I said, well, Nancy, but what do other people want? And like, how are they going to get their human needs met? Not just, what they need at work, but like, how are they designed as humans? If you can speak to that, and you can be a little bit more patient with the process of what you're creating here. And I remember you several times just going, okay, Kate, really? and then you started experimenting with it, and it started to work, which was cool, which was really cool, right? I love that. Okay, so what's the impact of that now, right? I mean, do you feel like you're having a voice? Do you feel like you're creating change? Do you have energy now when you come home? Like, what's the impact?
So the one thing that really came to mind when I was preparing for our conversation today is, to that question, was this same coworker of mine who was so worried about me all the time and would call me and call me and call me. And are you okay? Are you okay? I'm so worried about you. And he doesn't call me anymore. And that's not a bad thing, right? I mean, because now he noticed the difference, and he has, and he isn't the only one, right? And so that's really where I said, okay, it's not just me, right? I think I feel better. I think I'm doing better. I think I'm having more impact and success in how I communicate with people and do things. But the fact that others have noticed unprovoked and said to me, something's a little bit different. You seem more comfortable in your skin, or, and so that's been huge. But in addition, the confidence level has completely changed. And I never really use the term imposter syndrome for myself, but I'm, I have heard that a lot, in the past months, and I didn't attribute it to myself, but I realized, I was fine when I was in my element in the pharmacy, and that was my area of expertise. And I was I had the most expertise in that area in the whole place. Right now, I felt like, oh, I don't know anything. I don't know this political game. I don't know this financial, all of this stuff. I have a lot to learn. And so it feels completely different, because now I approach all of those things instead of I'm failing and how I should know this to I shouldn't know this. How could I possibly? And so I'm going to be inquisitive, and I'm going to ask questions, and I'm actually going to admit, I don't know what you're talking about. And what I've found out is that when I do admit that, at least half the room says, yeah, I don't know either, and so, and that's been just really relieving. And so what it's allowed me to do is be genuine. and be that transparent person and that genuine person that I thought I was being when I was screaming and yelling and passionate and frustrated, but actually now genuine in a way in which I'm calm. I listen a lot more. And that's been, I mean, I had to practice that. I'm a talker. And I will walk into a conference room, into a meeting and say, I'm not really sure why I'm at this meeting, but I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to listen, and I'll contribute if I should. And if I don't, I'm not going to feel like I have to speak, where I used to feel like I had to speak. I have to prove myself. I have to say, I'm here in this meeting for a reason. No, now I listen and I say, maybe the next time I don't need to go to this meeting. And that's another thing too. And just realizing that my time is important and I deserve to protect it. And that was part of a conversation that you and I had, I think, on one of our calls, where it was, you say no to the meeting.
Yeah.
And I was like, say no to a meeting? Like, talk about fear of missing out. Like, oh my God, I couldn't possibly. What if they talk about something and I don't know what's going on? And I'll give another quick example, is that when I first moved up, and you see I'm in this office, and I had an opportunity to choose offices because there was a few empty spaces. And this particular office has a door that goes into a hallway. And it was the office that the previous people in this position had sat in. And so I had an opportunity to have a different office behind an admin in the corner with a much prettier view and more windows and so on. And I thought, no, I don't deserve that office, right? And I just said, an office is not a big deal. It's whatever it is. But the truth is, I took the office that I took because I didn't think I deserved anything different. And I thought I should have the hallway office. And because I knew that if I had that office, I would hear more and I would see people go back and forth more and have an opportunity to know what's going on. And it didn't hit me until going through this program and saying, oh my gosh, I took that office because I was so afraid of missing out on things. And instead, now I'm in this office where it's Grand Central Station. I have to shut my door all the time because I'm loud and I'm always on a conference call. And now I feel like I'm more isolated anyway. And so I'm about ready to ask to move to the other office because it's open and it's ready. And I said, this is ridiculous. This is a terrible office for a lot of reasons. So it's that type of confidence now and realization that I can approach everything from a completely different lens.
Yeah.
Because of it, I go into meetings with my team, meet with employees that are their employees, and just feel so at ease and don't worry about what if it sounds wrong? What if I don't say it right? What if they think I'm kooky or crazy or, whatever. It doesn't really bother me. I'm like, no, this is the team I'm trying to build. This is the culture I'm trying to build, and come along or tell me how we could do it differently. And I'm open to that too.
What's coming across for me, Nancy, is you're just calm. You're just moving through and going, look, we're going to have challenges. I'm already in a tough industry. These are the things that we deal with. And you've really got what we call those mental and emotional boundaries now around who you are and how you operate, versus spinning and getting frustrated and then feeling like, it's all on you and you have to prove yourself and all this heavy lifting that women do. You're just like, I'm going to work, I'm doing my thing, we're doing the best we can, and I'm getting results, and people are seeing that. And I just feel this sense of ease now, like the way you're explaining how you work now. I mean, do you feel that?
I feel it. I mean, we hear this term in our group a lot about feeling lighter, and it, in a sense, it's, you think like, oh, it's cliche. It's not. It's really true. You feel lighter. I don't dread getting up in the morning. It's not a weight. It's not heavy. I look forward to getting up and walking my dog and getting ready for work and getting to work. And if I stay late, I stay late. If I want to leave, I leave. I do work less. I'm working less, and I don't think I'm less productive because of it, and I'm making my choices, right? I don't feel as much anymore like I have to. I do what I want to because I want to contribute to what I'm doing. It's important work and I enjoy the work, and I always have enjoyed the work. I feel like I am one of those lucky people who chose a profession and liked the profession, thank God, so I don't want to do something different. I want to be in healthcare. I want to be in this field. But the other thing that has shifted is the realization that there could be other options, and that's freeing, right? To say, I mentioned it earlier that I felt it was an unhealthy relationship with the organization I worked for, that I felt like I owed them.
Right.
And I have really changed that script in my head now. I'm thinking, no, I've done a lot for this place. And if I choose to move on at some point, we're good. I don't owe anything more. And so just because of that, it's easier to stay, right? Because now I'm like, okay, there could be some things out there. And it seems silly, but I actually got the courage to just go on LinkedIn and put in a little job description thing and just say, I just want to see even what's out there.
Right.
I looked and I said, okay, there's a few things that I could be interested in. Good. Let's put that over there for now. I don't need to look anymore.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have done that. Like, I never would have done that because the idea of leaving was like crippling to me. It really felt so impossible.
Wow, what an incredibly inspiring story. Nancy, thank you so much for being here and sharing what has been like for you to be in such a tough industry right now with the pandemic, and how you are actually thriving. And best of all, we get to keep you, in a role where the world needs you. So just amazing story. Thank you for being here. And I just want to invite everyone out there who's listening, if you want to go from a story like Nancy's, where literally you're thinking, I've got to quit my job, but you feel trapped, right? By obviously what you've worked so hard for, and you don't want to give up, and you're curious, could it be possible that you could actually enjoy and feel fulfilled and enjoy your success? I want you to book a call with our team. Go to goodlifeinstitute.org/call. On the phone, what we'll do is we'll just talk about what's going on for you. We'll take a look at your career, take a look at what's working, what hasn't been working, and just let you know what the possibilities are. Obviously, if it's a fit to work with us, we'll tell you, but if not, we have a whole host of other resources as well. So don't let that stop you from booking a call. Get clarity on what's going on. And that's really the gift. So many women that we talk to are like, Kate, this is the best 45 minutes to an hour I've spent on my career in a very long time. So we invite you to book that call with our team. Again, it's goodlifeinstitute.org/call. Nancy, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all on the next show. Hi, thanks for tuning into today's show. If you want to subscribe, you can do that by clicking the little picture of me over there. If you want to book a breakthrough call, which you absolutely should do, you can click the button below or go to goodlifeinstitute.org/call to book an appointment to speak to us. I'll see you on the next show.